Citizen TV Kenya. Please use the hashtag #OpinionCourt so that we can track your conversation. I'd like to reintroduce my panel to you. To my immediate right is Dr. Mustafa Ali, who is a conflict resolution expert, having worked in over a dozen countries, including with the United Nations, the AU, and others in conflict resolution. Next to him, our resident political analyst, Edward Kisiangani. Next to him is Chris Wamalwa, who's a member of parliament, but for our purposes tonight, a one-time member of the Defense Committee, who is in support of the amnesty offered by the government. And next to him, TNA National Chair Sakaja Johnson, who is opposed to the amnesty deal. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. Chris, I want to start with you. Why do you agree with the government that amnesty is the best approach?
Looking at the situation of security in this country, the Shabaab, when you do a cost-benefit analysis of amnesty, you find it's going to be positive because we've had a lot of attacks. The government has put in efforts, but unfortunately it's not been successful. And if you look at other countries, strategies of amnesty are used in most cases when a government has tried and it has failed. And for purposes of this discussion, you can see we had the Mandera 1, Mandera 2, we had the Westgate, now we've had the Garissa. It demonstrates that the government has totally failed. So in this case, you have to go to amnesty. That might be the only last option, so that you'll be able to give these people amnesty, so that they'll be able to come so that you can learn from them, they can give full disclosure. Maybe using those strategies, then you can be able to catch up with them. Because right now we've waited for too long, lives are being lost, nothing is being done. So maybe this is the last option. So we do support the option that is there, and I'm surprised that my colleague who is from the government, who is opposing. So really, I don't know whether it's a trick or what the case it is.
Well, let him give us his position.
Yeah.
Sakaja.
You know, on matters like this, trying to draw a line of black and white is never the right approach. And when you say I'm opposed to the amnesty, we're not saying that we're opposed to it. We're saying that we need a more sophisticated approach in terms of dealing with these young people. When you say the government has failed totally, I would disagree. And I would say not enough has been done. More can be done. And number two, there must be an exit strategy. We must, even if it's in confidence as parliamentarians, be able to understand and interrogate what happens when these young people come. You're basing amnesty on the assumption that there are people trying to get out of this. Terrorism is, according to me and according to many people, it's an ideological trap. Have you addressed the root causes of this radicalization? Have you addressed the reasons why these young people are being assimilated to kill other young people, as was the case in Garissa? And the biggest problem in this country is that every time something like this happens, we're very quick, and from all sides, as you can see, even Chris from the opposition, very quick to sweep things under the carpet. Unless we address the root issues and the root causes of why our young people are being radicalized, and have a clear strategy that is well thought out. A lot of the interventions that are coming out, many of us are not happy with because they seem knee-jerk. They seem that they're not well thought out, they're not sustainable. And a blanket amnesty, to me, is not sustainable. It must have an end game. If in the highly unlikely event, because this is not like the amnesty.
What do you mean by end game?
This is not like the amnesty you would give to a robber who knows he's wanted. Because he knows he's wanted, so he knows he'll be caught. And if he's wanted, and you tell him you'll not go to jail, he'll come. These are people who have sworn, who are ready to give up their lives. Why do you assume they're just telling them come and will not touch you, and it's somebody who's ready to die, they will just come? That to me is actually lazy thinking. It's lazy thinking. And I think we need to be true to Kenyans. We need to give real solutions to that.
Dr. Ali, let me come to you because, as I said in your introduction, you have worked in conflict resolution. A lot of Kenyans are apprehensive about this, in as far as how would one be sure, as Sakaja has said, that these are people who are actually looking for a way out, and won't use this opportunity to basically reintegrate in community as sleeper agents while they plot for their attacks.
Yeah, let me thank you, and let me say this first. I agree with Sakaja when he says that an amnesty has to be well thought out, and it appears to me that this particular amnesty, I don't know what mechanisms have been put in place to receive these young people who desert Al-Shabaab, and then the de-radicalization process starts. But saying that the amnesty is not required at this point in time, that's where I disagree with Sakaja. And I would plead with Sakaja to support the president and the government on this issue. This is not conventional warfare. This is terrorism. It's not even insurgency. And when you're dealing with an asymmetric warfare of this nature, then you have to use all options that are available to you. Amnesty is one of those. As it is, I don't think even the government knows the number of young people who have gone to Somalia. And this is why parents are being asked to come forward to report who has left, who is missing, so that they can come up with a database. They might know of a few. And secondly, since 9/11, there is not a single terrorist organization that has been defeated. Not a single terrorist organization globally. But what has happened instead of that is so many more brutal organizations have come out, have come up, and therefore we have to find new ways of dealing with these issues. Military solution has not worked. It has not worked in Iraq. It has not worked in Afghanistan. As we speak today, the US is talking to the Taliban in Doha, in Qatar.
And
so
yet,
on
the other hand, they say we do not negotiate with terrorists.
There's a difference between talking and negotiating. They are not negotiating with the terrorists. They are talking to the terrorists. Those are two different things. When you are negotiating with a terrorist organization or a group, you're giving them legitimacy. But you can talk to terrorist groups. This amnesty is leading to talks to Al-Shabaab. And this is the direction that we need to take, and we need to support the government in this. But we do not need to do it in a kind of a knee-jerk reaction, as Sakaja is saying. It needs to be a well-thought-out process. De-radicalization process does not start until disengagement begins.
And I want you to hold that thought there, because I'll come back to you a little later to talk about what you think the specific strategies should be. Prof, what do you make of all of this?
You know, Anne, there's one thing I agree with the Honorable Sakaja and my friend Ali, that the strategy should be widened. But the starting point for this discussion should be the Constitution of the Republic. Our Constitution, under what comes closer to amnesty, is covered under Article 133, where somebody can petition the President to exercise mercy and pardon some people who have committed offenses, including the one that we are discussing. I'm not sure whether anybody petitions the President, and it is even the same section says that if the President exercises that mercy, he must do it in writing. We don't know, because the message came from what looks like the Cabinet Secretary for Internal Security. I don't know whether that was a delegated message or not. But if it was not a delegated message, the method from day one is wrong, because the Constitution is very clear and it needs an advisory council, and I think that's what my friend Sakaja is talking about, an advisory council that can come out with strategies that will determine how well you can carry out this kind of pardon. That is the first thing that I heard. And I'm not sure whether Parliament, he will respond to it, whether Parliament has even that advisory council to tell the President this situation warrants this. Now, that is the width with which we can deal with this question of amnesty. But also, going ahead, I think what my friend Ali is saying is that that since 9/11, nobody has no terrorist organization.
The war has not been won.
Yes. Yeah. He's actually, as you can see, and you know, he's a friend I respect very well. He's an apologist of terror. In fact,
I want to repudiate that. I'm not an apologist of terror.
Because listen, you know, we have this is the second time. This is the second time you are making this. You are an apologist of terror. Why don't I finish my point?
We'll give you a chance.
You cannot say that.
I appreciate that you will have the right to respond. Prof, if you could apologize.
Yes, you see, he says go and talk to them. Go and talk to them. He's saying go and talk to them. The Americans are talking to them. What is the strategy for this talk? I expect him to say this, that in our local situation here, how can we isolate the young men and women who are joining terrorist camps in Somalia, and what strategies do we put in place to make sure that they are not attracted to terrorism? Because our strategy is to save the country, our homeland security. But to start telling us, while we are being attacked and the people are being buried in Kitale, people are being buried in Kakamega, then you say, go and talk to them. This is nothing but apologizing for the terror activities that have hit our country.
Okay,
I don't think the professor knows what he's talking about.
Let's allow Dr.
Talk to them about what?
This is not,
gentlemen, please allow Dr.
This is not a conventional warfare. This is asymmetric warfare. We're not talking about an insurgency even. We're talking about terrorism here. And for professor to come here and say, and this is the problem, we are trivializing everything, including professionals and professors like Kisiangani here, trivializing an important issue of a conflict that is consuming this country as we see. We've seen Peketoni, Mandera, Westgate, Garissa. What did we learn from that? Do we have the capacity to actually ensure that there is not going to be another terror attack? And if we don't have this capacity, what should we do? I'm not saying that we negotiate with terrorists. We should never legitimize terrorism and groups by negotiating with them. But surely we should put we should set a process, which the president has, a process that is going to secure this country. And by the way, the radicalization process that we're talking about here, and research has shown, I'm not too sure that professors in universities nowadays read research. A research that was published last year. You see, a research that was published because we published this research. I want to talk about this.
You have the kind of competence.
I want to talk about this research, which was published and was launched in this country and in Washington. I want to talk about this research. The research shows that the age group that young people are joining Al-Shabaab in Somalia is between the ages of 15 and 19. That's the joining age to Al-Shabaab. The radicalization process starts much earlier, ages 9, 10. Now, we can't criminalize a kid who is 8, 9 years. We have to address and salvage the situation.
Let me take you back, Dr. Ali, because I think where the bone of contention is what exactly would these talks be about, and what is it that you would be saying to these people to, one, persuade them to, you know, disown the ideologies that they have taken up, and then two, to not just disown, then reform them, because there is concern about like the residual effects of the sort of training or indoctrination they've gone through. Why don't you walk us through what it is you have been able to do, because you've done this in about 12 or so countries with the UN and with the AU in as far as conflict resolution is concerned. What is it that you usually do?
You know, we're talking here of ideological extremism. And so most of these young people have been exposed to ideological extremism. When we talk about radicalization, we need to understand what is radicalization. And radicalization is simply a process whereby one is exposed to or adopts extremist views that constitutes assault to mainstream values. Now, this can happen at any stage from when one is very young, and it is happening in this country from young people who are very, you know, ages 8, 9, 10, and moving forward. So they are easier now to be taken into violent groups like Al-Shabaab because they are already exposed to that.
I think you've elaborated on that point. Tell me, what exactly would you be saying to them once they have actually been conscripted that would be persuasive enough not only for them to, one, drop the ideology, but two, embrace a new one, and then three, ensure that there isn't some sort of residual effect of it? How do you know that they wouldn't, you know, basically, you know, smile and make pretty for now, but still hang on for a time to, you know, unleash what they were trained for?
And that's where you need a counter-ideological process. And these people, the ideological extremism that these young people are exposed to is not just going to be taken away. These are not people who joined these groups because of certain, at least here in Kenya, some of them for some economic gains, but most of these were actually pulled by a certain ideology.
What do you say to them, doctor? I'm waiting to hear a statement. What do you say to a person?
You cannot de-radicalization. I mean, we can't do a de-radicalization. We cannot de-radicalization in a sitting like this. De-radicalization takes 5, 6.
But tell me the key
years.
messages, perhaps. What would the key messages be?
You need to prepare a proper message. We need to know the narratives of these people.
Right.
Now, we need to look at the narratives that made these people join Al-Shabaab in the first place. And then we have to develop a counter-narrative. Now, this counter-narrative is not going to be developed by politicians or some professors from university. The ideological extremism that these young people are exposed to is religious in nature. It's one that religion has been misused. And therefore, the counter-narrative will have to come from that.
From religious scholars.
Precisely.
All right, Chris.
Now, one thing I want to say, what Professor had mentioned, when you talk about the aspect of amnesty, indeed, like Article 133 of the Constitution stipulates, there must be an advisory committee. And I want to say this, it is very clear in the Constitution that the relevant cabinet secretary, and I'm very sure when CS Ngaisari had come up with, because he's part of the advisory committee when it comes to security matters. So His Excellency cannot just wake up from anywhere to say it's not well thought of.
Right.
I want to assume that he was advised, and that's why this decision came up. But what my friend, the conflict, my friend, the conflict expert, but his CS has said. His CS has said. He has been on air. He has mentioned that.
It's not thought of. You're saying he has said it's not thought of. He has not.
But he can't come up with such a decision if it's not been consulted.
Surely
widely.
such a statement would come out from the CS and the president.
Absolutely, that is a government position. That's a government position. But my friend here, who purports to be an expert in the conflict resolution, he should be able to operationalize. You've asked him many questions, but I've not heard anything sensible from him, because he's too much dismissing professor, dismissing politicians. But can you come up with the practical solutions, as you claim you're an expert? And he indicated that you cannot win the war on terrorism. Terrorism, as we explained further, this is an ideology, and we must be able to operationalize to get the key indicators. We've seen the 9/11. Since that time, America has put strategies in place, and we've seen the issues of those attacks have gone down. So you can't come on the national TV and you claim that issues of terrorism you cannot win.
I want to appreciate what you're saying, sir, but I do not want this to be a one-man battle in upmanship. So I'll move to Sakaja. What are your views on what you've heard him say?
His views, to a great extent, are very unfortunate because he's actually today he's been more academic than the professor, who we thought would be academic about it. And today you've seen the people misbehaving are not even the politicians. We've just been watching them do that thing. Look at this picture right over here. Those guys are holding, what are those? Rocket propelled
missile launchers?
Grenade
launchers, I suppose?
He's telling us to go and talk to them. We had a politician recently saying that we try and negotiate. They're negotiating or talking, those are semantics. I am talking about the root issues. You cannot talk, when we have an imminent threat in this country, you cannot tell us to start negotiating and talking these people. We must first deal with the issue. Deal with them. Let them know that what they're doing is wrong. If you walked through, Dr. Ali, I promise you, if you walked through the mortuary in Chiromo as I did on Saturday, when we went to visit the families, and they saw those kids who've been killed, bodies that cannot even be identified. Kenyans do not want you to tell us to talk to this. They're animals. What are we talking about? They're not human rights. But even as we deal with those, you people are assuming, even as you talk about amnesty, I have no problem with amnesty so long as it's well structured. You're assuming that tomorrow Ngaisari will announce that if you have been conscripted to Al-Shabaab, come to Uhuru Park and we'll have 1,000 people there. It is naive thinking, it is lazy thinking. We must get real solutions that are practical. We can no longer be admitted.
Structured. You keep saying properly structured and sophisticated approach to deal with the core issues. Break that down for us. What is properly structured?
Number one, you must deal with the community, the communities, and the leadership within those communities. Which is why today we were saying that the statements made by leaders in Northeastern that they will start exposing. First of all, every Kenyan is saying these statements have been long overdue. We don't know what they've been waiting for. But that, nevertheless, now that they've said it, we want to see those names. And it's not a name, I mean, they should not publish it to Kenyans. They should give it to the relevant authorities. But once you've done that, these young people are being radicalized in mosques. isn't it? Or in religious institutions.
Right.
Religion is being used.
Right.
So we must reorient ourselves to know that we are dealing with a war. We are in a state of war. So once you do that, you deal with the community leaders.
Right.
They will help you know. Parents will come and say, my child has been missing for 1 year. Why haven't they not been saying it?
And that is already happening. Community leaders are being dealt with, correct?
No, not conclusively. Do you have a list of people who said that kids have been sent, have been away?
All right. I think
not.
they've been dealt with to the extent that we have seen, even throughout the past week, the leaders of the community go back and speak in various barazas, etc., and request those names. We're waiting to see. Hold on a second.
There is what is said in the media and on a platform.
Fair enough, but we're waiting to see whether or not there will be actual results out of that talking. Prof, your thoughts?
I've not even finished my thoughts.
Dr. Omarwa is here. I think the way to assess the competence of people on a lighter note is to look for their students.
Prof, please, let's not go to personal attacks. We have a bigger conversation here.
But this is, I'm leading you to something. If you look at the studies in conflict, what you call conflict studies across the world in the universities, most conflict practitioners like Dr. Ali do not want even you to use conflict resolution. Resolution, because it is a money-minting field. They want you to talk about conflict management. So I want to show you that I'm competent in your subject area. And so the management means, you reduce the pain, but you keep making money as you reduce the pain. And that is really how he earns a living. If you stop the conflict and defeat the terrorist, Dr. Ali will have nothing to teach. He will have nothing to do. That is the truth.
Hold on, gentlemen. I just want to set the record straight. Please let us not bring this conversation down to the level of personal attacks. It's not useful for the audience. That's not what they're watching for. But Dr. Ali, the government has offered, Sakaja, the government has offered amnesty before in incidences such as Capedo. How successful has this been, and do you have any examples world over where amnesty has worked when dealing with terror?
Yeah, there are many examples where amnesty has worked when dealing with terror. Before I say that, there are differences in when you're talking about conflict resolution, conflict management, and conflict transformation. Those are three different concepts and constructs. And I want to correct the
you guys stop being academic. Just let's deal with the issue.
If you would answer my question, sir.
We cannot come with panelists here who just come and pillory others. Let me answer your question. Yes, there are many examples.
Please give us
that have been there. Not in this country, though.
Yes, yeah, a global perspective.
Let me start with the Philippines. The Moro Islamic Liberation Organization fighters, Moro in the Mindanao. That conflict was significantly reduced when amnesty was declared and when the government negotiated, not just talked to, negotiated with the Moro Islamic Liberation Fighters, MILF. And today we have some sense of peace in southern parts of Philippines because that was done. And that has worked.
Okay, so he's given his example. Sakaja.
Okay, so tomorrow if you're to start talks, who do you call? To which boardroom? Let us be practical. What the real problem with our security is, number one, which Jubilee government is trying to do. And what I was saying today, earlier on in Parliament, is that when we get to such a point, first of all, we must forget politics, and everybody must rally around the Commander-in-Chief. And we are supporting the President in this battle. But supporting him includes giving real solutions and being honest with each other. Number one, when you talk about our security apparatus, which talks will improve, or laws? Someone was saying about we need to improve our laws. We've done that. But the plane that was supposed to be used by the Recce squad is being used to transport somebody's family. We must be practical in this country. And when such a case arises, you want to tell us that we want to form a committee to look into that for 10 days. That person should be fired a long time ago. We must get practical. Kenyans want answers. So if we want to sit here and theorize and look at the academics, there's a big problem within how even we're remunerating our policemen, how we are prepared for disaster. The Recce squad should be able to get to any part of this country within 1 hour. And that is what we must talk about. Are we prepared to deal with the threats? How is our disaster preparedness? Why would it take 15 hours and 4 people to kill more than 140 young people? Those are the things we must deal with practically. Now, once you've dealt with that, if you look at countries like Saudi Arabia and other such countries, whenever a young person was found to be part of either terror or whatnot, not only was that person dealt with, but those people who, we can say in legal terms, were acting as accomplices because of not bringing them out. The communities, the families must be brought to book. You must get that kind of accountability.
Prof.
Yeah. Yes, I think let's sober up a bit. What we really need to do is to look at the homegrown solutions. Are we, and I am supporting what Honorable Kasakaja is saying, have we sealed all the loopholes within our security system to warrant amnesty, and now we know that our home ground is clean? Once we do that, we are okay. But I think that there's another emerging thing which Honorable Kasakaja seems to be raising, that we do not have to politicize this. Security is politics from day one. You arrest my son, I say, you know, you are against me because I didn't vote for you. So the question of isolating politics from it is not going to happen, Anne. I think it is important for the factions, the two factions of parliament to sit together and actually speak with one voice. Because if you have seen what has happened there, Anne, in terms of strategy, we shall also be divided in terms of strategy, because Sakaja's group is probably not the same as Jamlek Kamau's group, and now even in his own party code, the voices are not the same. That is the starting point.
There's need for bipartisan.
Thank you.
Your final view.
First, I want to say conflict resolution is a new discipline, is a new paradigm, and is still emerging, still evolving. Many people who purport to be experts in whatever they are talking about conflict resolution, you find that they've borrowed so much from other disciplines. So it's a new emerging discipline that is still evolving. Secondly, on the issue of amnesty, when you read about some of the theories in amnesty, amnesty is being given in a situation whereby you are unable to sort out the issue. You are unable to get the solution.
And you feel we aren't there yet?
Absolutely. No. What I'll say, as far as things are concerned right now, we are actually unable to manage the situation. We are trying, yes, but we've not done it significantly in a way that is going to negate the interests of the Al-Shabaab.
We can manage it.
In amnesty,
we could manage it better.
There's issue of sensitization. And I want to say this. Today I had a chance to talk to the leaders from Northeastern. They went around the communities. They went around the leaders, the local leaders. They were sensitizing them so that they can be able to come out, because some of them were fearing. So in the process of amnesty, sensitization has to be there. And the leaders from Northeastern, they are doing this. But we are giving them a time frame where they have to come and specify who are these Al-Shabaab sympathizers or the financiers. That you can't let it go away. It must be made public. So the issues, we are supporting the amnesty issue because the strategies we put in place, we are unable. And that's it. Fair enough. Gentlemen, I will conclude it there, but allow Dr. Ali, who has borne the brunt of their wrath, to make his closing remarks.
Thank you. And thank you very much. I just want to say that when we are talking about amnesty issues, this is a serious matter, and that we need to treat it very seriously, and that we need to support the president. And amnesties have worked in the past. The only rider that I would put here is that this amnesty needs to be thought out very carefully, as Sakaja was talking about. It has to. We need to have a process, a structure, like a committee that is going to process this from outside the government and the government itself. And only then is amnesty going to be successful. And
I'd have to note that we did reach out to the Ministry of the Interior on numerous occasions trying to get a representative to come on the show and talk about this. They declined to comment. So that's where we take a break. We're back with more news after this.